Hello again, sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun filled, action packed, and intellectually stimulating edition, as always, of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist DT from WX Risk here in Central Virginia, the commander of chaos, the colonel of confusion, and the captain of catastrophe. So, it's Dorian time update for another evening update, so let's get right to it. And our topics here this evening about Dorian, we'll be talking about obviously it's turned north. It's fallen apart significantly during the day, as expected. It's going to take a very tight turn to the coast. Um, and the issue is, will it regain any intensity over the next 36 hours? It might, a little bit. So we'll take a look at that. First, we'll start out some pictures here I found on Twitter. I'll send you the links I'll post on the Facebook page, but look at the devastation from the Grand Bahama Islands. I mean, absolute obliteration. Look at this place. My God, it's completely wiped out. Here's another one. Whew. Yeah, in case you can't recognize it, folks, um, that's a road. And remember the Grand Bahama Island, how it was shaped? It had this little thing like this. This point here. Maybe this point here. I'm just wondering. Anyway, that's pretty serious damage. And here, look at this. Holy crap. Mm-mm-mm. Long time to rebuild that place. All right. Latest information on Dorian. You can see the winds around 90 knots, a little higher, maybe 100 knots in some places. Again, we want to follow the blue line on the reconnaissance flight. So we want to follow it right here. You can see reaching about 95, 100 knots. There's 105, another peak there. And then, of course, obviously the winds drop down to the eye. And if we look at the red line, that's the pressure. You see the pressure's done around 950, something like that. So it's significantly weaker than it was, but it's still a potent, strong 2, almost a 3. And then you can see the flight level winds at the surface. You can see around 85 knots, around 100, 105 miles an hour, something like that. So it still remains a potent system, but obviously it's not looking very healthy. You can see here, this is the reconnaissance flight from 8 o'clock this evening. It's 9 pressures, 959, 960. A lot of dry air being entrained into it. This is the advisory at 5 p.m. Not a real change here. Very tight turn to the coast. In fact, some of the models have it even tighter than this. So that's going to be interesting to see here. Obviously, this was earlier. We had the tropical storm watches, hurricane watches, and warnings put out. They've got the hurricane warning up for the coastal area by Charleston, and then later on this might be upgraded to hurricane warning as the hurricane bounces along the coast, probably making landfall here and then there, maybe the western eye wall here and then here. So a very interesting next couple of days coming up. And then, of course, the update, you can see that the hurricane watch was extended up to the Virginia North Carolina border, and then Hampton Roads and eastern North Carolina are in the tropical storm watch area as well. All right, this was the morning satellite picture here from the 10 o'clock this morning. You can see the dry air being pulled in from the Florida Panhandle into the system, weakening it, sucking some dry air here. And then I posted this also on the Facebook page earlier. You could see at 7:15, then again at 10:15, the eye collapsed here a little bit, definitely. As in the western side of it, you can see getting weaker there, the shear on the western side, the impact of Florida. Now, if you look at the latest, okay, this here is as of 8:15. Actually, I think I want to show this one first. Yeah, this was 5 o'clock this afternoon, and you can see it looks like it has an eye here, mostly a dry spot, but that's a bit of an eye trying to redevelop, so that's significant. But notice that the really dark stuff, again, right here, that's the really heavy convection, the dark red and the black stuff, it's on this side. Okay, and there's your little kind of an eye or a dry spot, something like that. Notice you don't have the dark black stuff here at all. And then if we go to the one a little later, which was as of 8:15 this evening, you can see the dark black spots, the really intense convection cloud tops you see there is now gone. And we're getting, again, is this an eye or is this just dry air? It's both. And there's another piece of dry air getting entrained in here. So the dry air is definitely getting entrained to the system. So, that's not a surprise. Now, this interesting graphic I came across. This is the Hurricane Dorian. This is the 5-day forecast from the last 5 days here. From Tuesday, September 3rd, and you can see all the way up. And you go back to August 31st, it's just been a consistent trend towards Florida, East Coast Florida, then up the East Coast. So the Hurricane Center has done a fabulous job with this. Very consistent. Look at the cones. Look at the very, very consistent here. They really should be congratulated. Now this was, I also posted this morning on the Facebook page. This was the early morning GFS and the 6Z, and you can clearly see that the vast bulk of the lines in this area here shifted, into the coast. There's Hatteras. You can see this is Hatteras. Many of the lines are outside of it. Now they're either on Hatteras or west of it. You can see again southeast. There's southeast portions of North Carolina, Myrtle Beach. Now the lines are on it. So the 6Z GFS had shifted. This was the early morning European ensembles. And again, you want to look at the bend here compared to this one. You can see that the bend is much closer to the coast, and then right over Wilmington and then over Cape Hatteras. So somewhat of a, that's what I'm talking about, a tighter turn. It really gets into that. And that's why they actually have, this is kind of unusual, they actually have hurricane watches and warnings out for the Georgia Bend. Normally don't see that sort of stuff. Usually hurricanes will, miss the Georgia Bend, and they'll do something like this. But this is so tight, they actually have hurricane warnings for the Georgia Bend. In the concave area, the coastal flooding there could be pretty serious. All right, this was the, I believe I posted this earlier on the Facebook page as well. Let me clear that out. There you go. Yeah, this was the 6Z hurricane models from early this morning, and you can see many of them were east of Hatteras again, and they were also off the Georgia coast. You see that quite a bit. And then this is Hatteras here, so most of them were south of Hatteras. But that changed. This was the these were the in GFS 6Z GFS ensembles, and they all shifted back to Hatteras again. So again, these minor distinctions. You can see how close it is to the coast here versus here, the Georgia coast. These small shifts have huge implications depending on where you are, and you just don't know until we get within maybe 24 hours. And remember also this is an angled coast here, so that's making it complicated as well. This was the this is the 12Z hurricane model. As you can see, they shifted off the coast again, well off the coast. So they're going back and forth, back and forth. Now this is a radar simulation from the 3 kilometer NAM WRF model, which came out. Now normally the WRF model is not very good for hurricanes. I'm just using it for the radar presentation, and the only reason I'm using it now is because this is in very, very close agreement with the other models. So the midday 3 kilometer NAM, you can see the eye is right over Wilmington or just south of it, 942 millibars. That would be a significant strengthening. That would break it down to a category 4 again. So that would be a big deal if that were to happen. So I am concerned about this strengthening possible, okay, in this whole area right in here, as it makes its turn off the coast. So that is something to watch out for. We can't be complacent about this, not yet. And then of course what it does is it just bounces along the coast. You'll see the other models taking it right along like this, hitting Wilmington, hitting Morehead City, hitting New Bern, and then maybe over Hatteras or Western Hatteras, maybe over Manteo. So I am concerned about that a little bit. Radar signatures on the 18Z NAM, you can see the eye very clearly here. It's gone over Wilmington, and now it's in the bay. It's in this area here between Morehead City and New Bern, and then it's going to hit Morehead City right there in a little bit. And we see that here with the next image. Boom, there it is, Wilmington, and you can see it's just bouncing along. Now this is the 12Z, the 12Z GFS, and look where it's got it, right over Hatteras. Bang, 974. Now the GFS does not have as much intensification as the other models do. It manages a little bit, but generally keeps around a category 2 hurricane, which is significant, but it's not nearly as strong and doesn't show this burst of intensification. The other models do, and I'm worried that the GFS here is missing it a little bit. So we'll see if that trend continues. Let me show you the European model here. Now this is the midday European. This is valid for Thursday morning at 2 a.m. Look at the pressure here, folks. 945. That's a category 4 hurricane again. That's not good, and right off the Georgia coast. So I'm worried again. I'm getting a little worried about this trend here showing up, re-intensification. Now let's follow the European track. This is now Friday morning at, oops, go back. I missed to skip the slide here. Friday morning at 8 a.m. There it is over Wilmington, right? You can see the black dot there. The rain's moved in, to Hampton Roads, up into Richmond, and up into Delmarva. And the winds are really picking up quite a bit here. So the tropical storm force winds will probably reach southeast Virginia Thursday afternoon, I would think, the beginning of the gusts, and then earlier than that, Thursday morning in eastern North Carolina. And then we follow the next image here. Now this is, make sure I got this right here. Yeah, this is Friday evening at 8 p.m. And what's happened is that the system has gone right over Hatteras, as you can see, but now it looks like it's turned to the east at the last second. See what it's doing here? It does this. I put the gray dots here, and then boom. See it made that turn? Just like that. So that's actually a little south of Hatteras. So that would actually be better for Hampton Roads and for Nags Head and that sort of thing. It'd still be a huge hit for Cape Hatteras, however. If that's correct. We're spitballing this. We don't know if it's correct, but that's what we're thinking. Okay, and then finally it clears out here. By Saturday morning, this thing is booking, long gone. Friday night, it's gone, way out of here. Now, let's take a look at the winds. This is the early morning Tuesday European model. Now, this is knots. Oh, for Pete's sake. This is knots here. Okay, so you have to convert this into miles per hour. So, if we look at Hampton Roads, you have winds in Sandbridge, Virginia Beach to 70 knots, which is 78, 80 miles an hour. This is gust. This is maximum gust, not sustained winds, the most highest gust you'll get. And this is 30, 40 feet above the ground. So it might be a little low at the surface, but that's the most you'll see. Now in Hampton, look at Hatteras is 97 knots, which is almost 115 miles an hour. You have also close to 95 miles an hour here and almost 100 miles an hour there, 110, something like that. So right along the coast, very intense winds. But look what happens when you get to Richmond. 34 knots, gusts, that's 40 miles an hour. It's a windy day. Okay, here's Raleigh, 43. But as soon as you get close, look what happens in Greenville, a place like that. In Elizabeth City, 55 knots, 65 miles an hour. So again, very, very sharp line here with the winds. Very sharp line. Now that's the early morning European. So let's take a look at the afternoon run and see what this is doing. This is the afternoon run. Notice the winds in Hampton Roads have gone down a little bit. See this here? We no longer see that 60 or 70 knots. That's because the European took the eye just south of Hatteras. See the difference? That little jog makes all the difference in Hampton Roads. There you go. Now, east of North Carolina, 71 knots. That's 80 miles an hour in Elizabeth City, Currituck, Nags Head, way or hurricane force all throughout here, all down here, all Wilmington, Morehead City, New Bern. They're still going to get slammed. Okay, so but you can see the winds continue to drop off. Not nearly so bad in this area here. A windy day, a lot of rain, but not that bad. But once you get close to the coast, it goes up dramatically different. I mean, look, huge difference. 50 mile an hour wind gusts in Williamsburg. It's a windy day, and they're much worse than Hampton Roads down the south side. So, again, this is the point I'm trying to get across here. That's why this impact, this track over Hatteras, is so important for Hampton Roads in particular, and northeast North Carolina, and the lower Virginia Eastern Shore for that matter, really. Okay, in terms of the rainfall, this is the early morning rainfall. Huge amounts of rain. You can see up to 10 inches in eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia. But look at Richmond. Again, this is because the west side of the hurricane is going to fall apart. Look at the line. That's the 1-inch line. Richmond, under a half-inch of rain. Raleigh, 3/4 inch of rain. In Columbia, South Carolina, nothing, almost nothing down in here. And then look at the difference as you move to the coast. Huge amounts of rain, rapidly going up. Okay? Williamsburg, 3-4 inches. Richmond, under half-inch, maybe half-inch. Big difference. So that's the early morning, and then this is the afternoon run here. Same thing. If anything, the rain's down a little bit in Hampton Roads, but you can see it's very, very heavy over eastern North Carolina. But again, Richmond, a half-inch of rain. Raleigh, 3/4 inch of rain. As soon as you go east of Raleigh, up to 2 or 3 inches. So big difference. Now this is the 18Z, 18Z GFS, and you can see that it hits Wilmington, bang, Friday morning at 2 a.m. and then it goes right over Hatteras. As you can see that right here. You can see it goes right over Hatteras. Um, and then Friday morning, it's approaching Hatteras. You can see it. It's just, again, bopped very tight to Morehead City and then crossing into the southern Outer Banks as a Category 2. Um, there you go. And then, so then we go at this point here. And here you can see it's cleared over Hatteras almost to the east, just like the European. If you, in fact, if you go back and take a look, we'll see the European here. Um, there it is, east of Hatteras. Very, very similar. So this is a very good sign that the 18Z GFS is doing the same thing as the 12Z European. If we look at the British model, again, look at this. Boom, back to Category 4, went tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock, with intensification. I don't know, maybe. That's a possibility. You can't ignore it. You're seeing on a lot of these models. You can't ignore it. This is the British model. Let me raise this a little bit here. There it is, 952, borderline 2 or 3. It's already made Wilmington landfall, very close to Myrtle Beach, and now it's slamming in the coast between Wilmington and Morehead City. And then if you look at it here, you can see it actually. Now the British model has it. Excuse me, it has it west of Hatteras, right in the middle of the Pamlico Sounds. This would be bad news. This would be bad news for Hampton Roads. So this would mean that those lower winds on the European, on the afternoon run, no, we want to go back to the higher winds, maybe 80 miles an hour into Hampton Roads. So this would be a little different. Again, you can see it clearly passing west of Hatteras. You don't want to see that in southeast Virginia. Now, it doesn't make a difference where it goes in Hatteras. All of the Pamlico Albemarle Sounds, the Outer Banks, are all going to take a big hit here. Elizabeth City is going to take a big hit. Edenton, Morehead City, Greenville, you got to prepare for this one. So, in summary, okay, if Dorian regains intensity, it'll be over the next 36 hours. By when it gets into the bend of the Georgia coast, east of Jacksonville, fresh water there, not as much dry air. If it's going to happen, that's when it's going to happen. Several landfalls are possible, or several near misses. It could just barely miss a Wilmington and Morehead City and Hatteras, or it could clip all of them. Hard to say. It depends on how. The key here is how close does it get to the Georgia coast, making this bend to the northeast. That's the key. The further west it is, the more likely these areas are to be hit. Okay? This is still a slow moving hurricane, and as it comes up the coast, it will suck in the dry air and the upwelling as well. So that will reduce the strength as it starts making its turn. And again, the key for eastern North Carolina and southeast Virginia, Hampton Roads, is Hatteras. Where does Dorian's eye track with respect to Hatteras? And again, west of Hatteras, it's in North Carolina, and into the North Carolina Sounds, the worst case for all of eastern North Carolina and southeast third of Virginia. If it passes east of Hatteras, it's not going to be nearly as big a deal. Though, again, a lot of this will also depend on the intensification. This is a new thing. We don't have to worry about it here. Watch, see if it starts to re-intensifying over the next 36 hours. That, I think, is kind of the bigger development here. The track is finally getting nailed down. But I'm worried about this intensification late, the second surge here a little bit tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, to tomorrow evening. This is meteorologist DT from Weather Risk. I'll talk to you soon.